Joel Grundenmeyer, Omnicare, 29 years as chief. Last 6 year total return, minus 6%. Compensation for that time, 13.9 million annually. Jeffrey Immelt, General Electric, 9 years as chief. Total return for the last 6 years, minus 5%. 6 year average annual compensation, 12.7 million. Ivan Sinderberg, Verizon Communications, tenure as chief, 15 years. Total return for the last 6 years, 2%. 6 years average compensation, 18.8 million. Gary Smith, Cena. His shareholders have been virtually wiped out, losing 93% in the last 4 years. His compensation over that period, 41.2 million. Yuri Sola, the CEO and chairman of Sanmina SCI, collected 26.4 million during the past 4 years, while Sanmina shares fell 78%. The bulk of Sola's pay came from the form of a performance bonus of 19.9 million paid for hitting one recent quarter's targets. Sun Microsystems paid Scott McNealy, its CEO, chairman, and founder, 13.1 million a year over the past 4 years, even as Sun's shareholders lost 76% of their money. Shares of supermarket chain Albertsons fell 39% over the past 4 years. Despite this dismal record, Albertsons CEO and chairman Larry Johnston collected a total of 76.2 million in that time. Under CEO Peter Dolan's watch at Bristol Myers Squibb, shareholders have seen the stock decline by 48% over the past 4 years. Dolan took home $41 million. Chief executives leaving S&P 500 companies pocketed a cool 16.5 million on average in the past 2 years on their way out the door. That 16.5 million doesn't even count juicy perks like gold-plated pension plans, rich stock option grants, health benefits, or use of corporate jets and company secretaries. These goodies can bump up the value of the typical executive severance package by an additional 50%. Compensation should provide an incentive for the compensated executives to do what the compensating organization wants them to. The first implication is that it doesn't make much sense for an organization to compensate executives for doing something they can't do. If an electric utility company compensates an executive for making sure winters are really cold and summers are really hot, because of course those are the conditions under which the company makes a pile of profit, it wouldn't be spending wisely because the executive has zero control over the weather. The executive has to be able to influence the desired outcome through diligence and intelligence. Let's look at modern executive compensation in this light. It has become dominantly stock-based, such as the biggest rewards come from the increase in stock price following the establishment of the incentive compensation system. With things like this, it is little wonder CEOs are cutting jobs and not allowing cost of living incentives. Speaking of COLs, I do feel raises should be merit based, but when the dollar is devaluating like it is today, thanks to our genius Fed chairman Ben Bernanke and his asinine bond buyback plan, means COLs must happen. In 2009, the dollar dropped 22%, meaning if you made $100 a day in '08, by the end of '09, you were only making a value of 88 bucks and still being paid the $100. Back to the topic at hand. CEOs, with the compensation package they get today mostly being based on stock market value, have no drive to keep up with the cost of living. They forget the little man is what making the company go. Their only worry is perceived future value and making the books look good from one quarter to the next. If that means hurting the little man, they don't care. It is the shareholders' responsibility to make sure the company is ran for the long term, not for the immediate bottom line accounting the banks were using when the crash happened. Shareholders do not need to let overpaid CEOs kill the company with extreme cost cutting measures so that you have to fire them. I'm sorry, pay to fire them, and bring in someone else whom you have to pay even more to solve the problems the last CEO left behind. For instance, Nardelli, current CEO of Chrysler and former CEO of Home Depot, received $200 million just to walk away. His actions cut profit by 32% in the last 2 years he was CEO. He also took out $2 billion in loans with a company that prided itself on being debt-free as a way to force growth where there was no ability to sustain it. Home Depot was the only major chain at that time that had never closed a store in the 20 plus years before he became CEO. They've had to close 30 since he left. There must be some type of control and oversight, but it does not need to be in the form of government oversight. Yes, they can tax the bonuses at 48 or 49%, but the companies will only become more inventive with the bonus structures they hand out. The stockholders have to take control and realize greed is not always good. Greed gets you where we are now, with the bailouts and such. One last thing. The CEO of AIG received a bonus in excess of $15 million the year the bailout was given to save the company. We can't let this happen. There must be changes made. We can't stand for the status quo to continue.